Hi guys, welcome back to The Learning Gardener. If you haven't been here before, my name is Pip and we're going to be planting some Kennebec potatoes, and this is Raphael, in these growing bags that have just been sitting in the back shed. Now these Kennebec potatoes are green at the moment, and we are in Australia in zone 10 and we're about 10 days away from summer, so we're planting our potatoes at an odd time, but everything potato this year has been strange, which leads me to why we are now planting in garden bags when we have beautiful Birdie's raised garden beds in this garden. About 6 or 7 weeks ago we planted what is about 3/4 of a bed with Nicola potatoes, because all of the potatoes that I planted for harvest this summer have already been harvested. We had a bit of a mixed success with our potatoes. Originally last season I planted Nicola potatoes in here and they did pretty well. Then over the winter I thought I would give it a go, planting some sweet potatoes that obviously didn't really do anything. It wasn't quite warm enough, it was quite a cold winter. But I thought I had been through this bed and dug out everything, especially sweet potato wise, seeing nothing really happened. And I went through checking for the dahlia tubers that I knew were in this area and could not find them, and I dug it all up, tossed it all over, and they've still been potatoes. I pulled out more potatoes out of here this week and they would be Nicolas, and they actually have I think it's a bacterial disease, I can't remember the name, I will look it up again and put it on the screen. But I was going to plant this bed up the other day, but from what I've read, the soil needs to be exposed to the sunlight for a little while to get rid of that bacteria, and it is also a side effect of alkaline soil, so I will put some more soil acidifier in here. I know that the soil that I got when I initially set up these beds was quite alkaline, so I have been treating the beds bit by bit, but obviously 2 seasons in this bed was too many for potatoes. In this bed we had planted about 1 kilo's worth of Kennebec potato seed potatoes, which is not a type of potato I had ever grown before. We then had 12 weeks of rain, which finished with a grand finale flood in the area, which you can see on some previous videos on this channel. But it meant we didn't really get much from this bed. Most of the potatoes rotted, but the potatoes that I did find in here were quite huge, which I was pretty surprised about. Unfortunately, most of them were either green or have now gone green. Some of that was because they got exposed to sunlight, because I wasn't paying much attention to them, because only 3 potatoes came up, and I was pretty disappointed. And the other reason why they've gone green is because unfortunately I was pregnant and my son was stillborn, and the potatoes have been sitting inside on the kitchen bench for a few weeks now, and so they've gone green, so we're going to use them and we're going to plant them in the potato bags. When I got home from hospital, the garlic was ready to be pulled, and so were the potatoes that we planted in this bed, which were red Pontiacs, and again, not a familiar variety to me, but they did amazingly well. So I've got to process all of those in the kitchen because we live in a coastal zone and there's no such thing as basements around here, and my experience is that our houses are too hot and the air is too humid to really store potatoes for a long-term situation, and I just don't have anywhere to store them, so they're going to get processed. And I'm just seeing some little weeds while I'm here, plucking them out, and we're just going to get most of them stored away in the freezer, and then I will bring some out and replant them, because as I said, the potatoes were ready ridiculously early this year, but I do need some more grow bags, which leads me to why we're going into grow bags. The first reason for switching to grow bags is because even though I've got all these beautiful Birdie's raised garden beds, there's still so much to grow and so little space to grow it in, and potatoes take up a huge amount of space. The other reason we're switching to, hi, you found me again, switching to the grow bags is because of some of the stuff we talked about in this bed. Number one, this bed now potentially has soil disease, which when you're dealing with a significant volume of soil is rather annoying and difficult to treat, and you don't want it to then affect subsequent crops that are going in here, especially when in winter I have a limited number of beds that are in full sun and that I can use, and I don't want that soil to be damaged or destroyed in any way by some sort of potato plague that I can't get rid of. The other reason is because even though I thought I had all the potatoes and all the sweet potatoes, they just keep coming up, and you don't necessarily want to grow potatoes all the time in every bed and have them generally scatter themselves around the garden because, again, disease, and number two, they're not a great companion plant for every single type of vegetable that you're going to grow. I mean, they'll all survive, but it's not necessarily ideal, so I don't want to do that. The other reason is because my best friend and I, not that long ago, wrestled these what are they called, Rio mesh arbors into place, and it was quite a wrestle for both of us to get them in, and they're held in with these T-posts or star picket posts, and I don't want to always be digging around the bottom here and potentially loosening the support for these by pulling out potatoes and then have it like slingshot open and probably hit Rafa because he's injury prone, or hit me because clearly my luck is great. But so yeah, I want to just try and contain the potatoes. As I was saying before Birdie started barking, at least with grow bags, if there's problems with the potatoes or with the soil, you can just toss the soil, and it's not the same as tossing the soil, which is a much more significant loss and a huge effort. So doing that will make life with potatoes easier. It's also going to make harvesting the potatoes easier. As much as I enjoy digging up potatoes and like finding what is hidden underneath the, well, I guess the desiccated canopy of the potatoes, but you know, you always wonder what's going on underneath all that greenery. And whether you're going to get a good crop, and it's so fun to uncover it. At least with a grow bag, I can just dump it out and easily harvest, which would have been nice to have when I got home from hospital. Yeah, that was not an easy day, although I managed without stressing my body out too much. It still would have been a lot easier, regardless of how that situation turned out, if I had just been able to dump the bag and empty the potatoes out rather than having to dig up a whole garden bed. So yeah, that's why we're switching to garden bags, and that was like the world's longest intro. Yeah, sorry about that. If it's all a garbled mess, as you can imagine, my brain is not working well. So for the time being, the growing bags are going to go here because at least they're out of my way for the most part, and if they end up getting shaded too much by pumpkins growing, then they can just be relocated. So the first thing I'm doing is putting in a bit of mushroom compost, because it is an open bag of compost that I had, which therefore makes it lighter and easier for me to lift. Then I'm going to pop in some slow release fertilizer and some blood and bone. I am going to toss in a little bit of homegrown compost. God, words are hard. It's not 100% broken down, but it's close enough, and it can continue to do its thing in here and provide some nutrition. And then I will pop the rest of the mushroom compost on top. And at least in a grow bag, it's also easier to hill the potatoes up as they grow. Something I noticed with the red Pontiacs was not something I'd seen on any of the other potatoes I've grown, is that really as the green stalk grew longer, the potatoes were actually very much forming on what should have ideally been underground. So even though I got a massive red Pontiac harvest, we could have got way more. So that's another reason in the 5 million reasons why we're switching over to these growing bags. So I'm just going to pop the fertilizer in, get a little bit of homegrown compost, pop the spuds in, cover them up, we'll call it quits. We have 6 potatoes in each. These ones are a bit more banged up. You can see some of them got sliced when I was digging them up, but I figured I might as well just chuck them in anyway, because if I put them in the compost, they will produce, and chucking them in the bin seems like a waste. And again, if they get diseases, I can just toss this entire bag. So we'll see how they go. I'm just going to top them with a little bit of compost and then the rest of the mushroom compost. I don't have a ton of compost, and what I do have, I have been spreading around as I belatedly get around to planting out all the warm season crops. That's a mix of mushroom compost and our compost on top. This one might be okay. This one definitely needs a little bit more just to cover the last potatoes, and whatever that is needs to come out. But when I need to hill these up a bit more, what I might do is add a little bit of chicken poo pellets in there, but for now the compost that we've got in there should be more than enough with the slow release fertilizer to feed these spuds for now. We are expecting about a week's worth of summer weather coming up in the next week, which makes sense given that we're 10 days out from summer. So I've made sure these guys are well watered in. I've covered them with a bit of sugarcane mulch. I don't have much left, so we used the last of what I had to cover these guys. It is not as much as I would normally use on potatoes, but it is what it is. I've only just started driving my car today, and I haven't gone to the hardware store to restock on anything. I am getting a delivery this coming week because I didn't want my mum to lift anything and do any more than she was already doing. And she already did quite a lot. She took out some of her feelings about what happened on an area of weeds that will become a memorial garden. It is much harder to talk on camera than I thought it would be. But anyway, so the potatoes should be fine. They will need some watering over the next few days. We'll see how they go. I'm going to get another couple of grow bags so that I can do things like sweet potatoes. And apologies for being a bit of a weepy mess on this video. Obviously, I'm on maternity leave earlier than what I had said previously was my plan, and my goal was to get to 1,000 subscribers so that I could make some income from this channel by the time I was on maternity leave. Obviously, nothing has turned out the way I thought it would. But if you don't subscribe, I would appreciate if you do consider doing so, because obviously it gets us closer to that goal, and if I can generate some income while I'm at home, it means I can stay home and not go back to work earlier. But yeah, don't feel obligated to do so just because I'm a mess right now. But it would be lovely if you have enjoyed the video, if you do consider subscribing. Next time you see me, I hope to be in a bit more control of my emotions, but I can't promise that. But we will probably take a week off doing garden work because the builder is finally coming back next week. It's been nearly a year since he was last here, actually more than a year since he was last here, and he's got to finish the skirtings and pull out some doors so I can paint them and do a few like little bits and pieces. And I know most people would be annoyed that it had been a year since their builder has been, but you know, obviously lately I've been otherwise occupied, but also I know that he put us ahead of other jobs that he had waiting because we were working with this kitchen supplier. So if we had actually joined the queue waiting to work with him from the back of the line, we wouldn't have been able to move in for months. So I am very appreciative of the fact that he came and prioritized our work, and that meant we got to move in earlier. And so I don't care when he comes to finish off the skirtings. So, but he's coming next week, and it'd be weird to film in front of him. And I also don't want to make other people who are coming to the house uncomfortable by potentially being in the background of videos. So when you next see us, it'll be about a week from now, and it will be summertime. And hopefully things will be a little bit rosier and a bit more sprouted in the potato department at the very least. So I appreciate you guys watching. Rafi's telling me it's time to go and play with him, so I better go and do that. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Oh, Rafi, what's wrong? What does Rafi want? Does Rafi want to play? Rafi want... Rafi want to play! You beautiful boy, aren't you? Beautiful boy.